Hey everyone, it's Sarah here. And as the description of this video is very honest, so will be this live stream and any live stream that I do. Everything that I post is really openly honest. But it's so interesting when, I'm looking sometimes at the things that I write and they come from the intellectual space. And then when I show up on live stream and the stream of consciousness is literally coming through and I would channel things through, and they can be so different in comparison to that written word. And I was saying to I'm just sharing something here so that more audience can see it, so bear with me for a second. So I was saying to a friend of mine. I was like, oh my gosh, sometimes I do feel like I have bipolar disorder, because those are two very different things in energy and the essence, the written word and the spoken word on a camera. And I have to be honest, another thing that it's really driving some of my audiences probably crazy is that all those live streams are pretty much unannounced, because one thing that I find myself really challenged with is structured live streaming, following bullet points, following agenda at a specific time of the day to show up and follow this particular agenda in a spoken word. And it's something that I'm learning to embrace. It's something I'm still working on. But the reason I wanted to be, the reason I'm bringing this to you is because I believe that each and every one of us has something that we're trying to hide and we're trying to fix, and we're trying to almost like we feel it's our weakness when it could actually be our greatest strength. And whether it's in leadership, in business, in our personal lives, it's just the way how things are, right? And one of the lessons that I had to learn, and it took me, again, quite some time to really integrate it in my day-to-day life, was the same self-judgment that I would subject myself to when it came to showing up for my audiences differently. One of my mentors once reminded me, he said, when you make a dinner at home, do you call my little ones were really little at the time. He said, do you call them to the table the same way that you let your husband know that dinner's ready? It's like, no. So it's like, so why would you be so hard on yourself? You know that the audience, first and foremost, they all come from different spaces. They're in different levels. They are receptive to different forms of communication. They're receptive to different ways, different essences of messages. So why would you be so hard on yourself, and why would you try to pigeonhole yourself into one particular way that is fabricated in its consistency? It's like, oh, okay, good point. So with that being said, it is also something that I have learned to embrace as a mentor or as a coach. Much more than sitting down and trying to force something on a paper and, like I said, following a structure and following guidelines, which is so ironic, provided that I used to live on schedules, and as an athlete, as a student, I follow those guidelines to the T. Now I'm almost like a little rebel inside, like, nope, not for me. But I had learned how to embrace it. And as a leader, I have to tap myself on the shoulder quite honestly that it has served me well. And I'm pretty sure that if you're experiencing something like this, when you're doubting in yourself about the quirks or something that you think is your weakness, I would challenge you to find ways and show yourself the evidence of how this is actually a strength. So in my coaching and consulting practice, how this is one of my greatest strengths is because it allows me to really meet the person exactly where they are and to really match. One of the ways that trust is built is matching another person's body language, is matching their tone of speaking, is matching them energetically. And this is really allowing me to do just that. So if you go through, this bipolar disorder, as I say, is really evident also in testimonials in some way, because there are clients who would say, oh my gosh, I died 1,000 deaths because Sarah sent me through fire and she's relentless. And there are others who would say, this was the most beautiful and loving experience I had. She has a patience of a saint. Just reading those two things, like, oh, holy crap, are we talking about the same person? But yes, we are talking about the same person. So the reason I wanted to share this with you so honestly and authentically is because as leaders, authenticity is the currency, and authenticity is the greatest strength that we have to offer to the world and to the people who we have been entrusted to influence. Whether it's your team members, whether it's your employees, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, anybody that you influence, it's a privilege and an honor and a responsibility. So, like I said, being a parent, even if you're a parent, then you probably know too that no two kids are the same. Even form of communicating and showing up for one of my kids is very different than showing up and communicating with the other one. What will tick another one off will motivate the first one. What will motivate the first one is going to send up the other one into screaming fit or a crying match of a pity party. And what really gets one to tap into her own strength is gonna freeze the other one, and she's gonna be like a deer in headlights filled with self-doubt. So it's such a beautiful self-awareness for a parent to have, is to be able to tap into the space where you can meet your child exactly where you are. And that's exact space when you're a leader and you have your team, and somebody responds with a flight, somebody responds with a fight, another one person freezes, right? And you have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful opportunity and privilege to be able to tap into your own toolbox, into your own inner guidance, and become resourceful and be authentic with them to the point where you can really meet them where they are. And I'm going to give you an example, right? I just had a conversation with a manager in a company who is facing a lot of stress right now. Coordinating who from the company has to come in, who can stay home, figuring out the schedules that are ever changing. If you just go and scroll down through the newsfeed, you're going to see the post from just a couple of days ago. The situation, the conversations, the dynamic, the tensions, they're still, pretty much the same. And when I was talking to them earlier today, they were really ticked off at the response that they got from their colleague. And I was like, well, I get it. It could tick you off, because what this particular manager expected was the colleague was sharing and expressing and how the colleague was showing up. But looking at the bigger picture, I was like, but you guys are a great team. You've been such a great team for the past, I don't know how many years. So, I challenged this particular manager, like, why are you so ticked off? What can you see, and can you put yourself in the other shoe? I was like, yeah, you're right. And it's seemingly such a small thing, and this conversation is now going to a completely different direction from what I thought it would be, so bear with me for a moment. But in that particular time and space, when we allow ourselves to put ourselves in the other shoes, again, you can see how, not the fact that you might be bipolar, and oh my gosh, I can't even be consistent in my own communication, but it gives this layer of compassion and understanding, and again, meeting where the other person is. And it does go both ways. So, as I mentioned earlier, right, as an athlete, I was trained to follow instructions to the T, because quite frankly, we weren't given much choice. Coaches were in charge. If you didn't follow the instructions, the team would lose, and there were repercussions, the repercussions for that, right? And I remember at one point we even won a game by, I don't know, it was a big difference. We won the game, but we still made so many mistakes in a particular game that we had a series of dozens of sprints to run the following day. Because yes, we won. The outcome was what we wanted, but the process needed to improve. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hate basketball. I hate this coach. I do not want to do this anymore. I'm done with it. But you know what? That was just that momentary, in this particular moment. I loved the game, I loved the team, I loved the coach. I fell in love with the process, and we all were going for the same common outcome. But the way that our coaches had to communicate what was and what was not going to be tolerated, what was and what was not expected, and where the boundaries were, that was one of the ways that they were able to get through us, right? Okay, if you're not going to take the positive reinforcement, then we're going to come up with forms of punishment for your recklessness. And it worked, right? Because more than looking for a reward, we just didn't want to be, in pain from all the sprinting. And again, it doesn't mean that the coaches showed up with that philosophy in every single conversation. It doesn't mean that they always showed up like this as leaders with a whip in their hands. No, they were some of the most loving people that I still know to this day. But it just goes to show that, how do I say this? If we elevate this conversation a couple degrees, we are all evolving, right? And one of the most beautiful things about evolution is, first and foremost, it's unpredictable. Secondly, it allows us to tap into the spaces. It allows us to tap into the layers of ourselves that we were not even aware they were there. And more importantly, as we are evolving, I do believe that we are not becoming somebody else, but we are returning back to the truest version of who we were born as. Because as we are going through a process of, growing up, and through educational system and through the jobs, all those expectations and different values and different fears and different stories, they're all being hung up on us like coats. So by the time you're an adult, imagine yourself wearing like 35 different trench coats. You can't even move in all those things. So yes, it seems scary at first when you're peeling back the layers and you're embracing the growth and change, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm becoming naked now. I have one more layer of the trench coat, and then now what? I'm totally exposed. But taking off the last trench coat and truly embracing who you are without all the others, the weight of all the other expectations, this is something the most liberating. And when we learn how to embrace that as leaders, then we realize that now there's no bipolar disorder because the written posts have one energy and one context, and the way I'm showing up, and I'm open to the streaming and channeling, and something else entirely is coming through. And when I'm in a conversation with a person, I get to match their energy, so I'm again a very different person than when I'm speaking in front of people without any interaction, when I'm speaking at them as opposed to with them, and so on and so forth. It's just embracing all the different shades of colors of the rainbow, right? And I'm getting really poetic right now. So, how can we embrace that? How can you embrace that as a leader? How can you embrace that as a human being? How can you embrace that as a spouse? How can you embrace that as a parent? My invitation, and something that I have learned, was that the less that I started to judge myself, the freer that I allowed myself to be, the more wholesome I became and more multidimensional, the more wholesome and multidimensional and holistic my whole experience in this human body has been. And the more that I'm open to, painting with all those colors of the winds coming, the song Colors of the Wind is streaming through right now from Pocahontas. The more complete this whole experience is, not just for myself, but also for those around me. One last thing that is really coming through strongly right now is when it comes to following your inner guidance and trusting this process of evolution and growth and embracing every single level and every single shade and taking off all those layers, and being okay that there's more than one side to you, the less likely you are to frantically run around, succumbing to the collective pressure of fear and uncertainty that's surrounding us right now. And you're able almost to create this superwoman type of a shield around you when you're literally becoming immune to all the external currencies. So you're not like a candle in the wind going back and forth, but you find you drop into this zone in yourself, within yourself, this strength, self-reliance and resilience and self-trust. And you're able to really tap into this bigger vision of yours. And you're using it as a northern star, your personal northern star. So no matter what is going on around you, no matter what other people out there are saying and worrying about, you know your truth, you know your path, and you can continuously forge your own path. And another conversation I had today really brought all of this together, right? The person mentioned to me how for over 30 years they have served their clients with their gifts, and how over 30 years they have truly evolved and grown. But then they said something between the lines that really got me, like, I stopped them and I challenged their statement. And their statement was, but what do you know? Everybody's so scared right now. There's nothing I can do for them. And I was like, the expertise that this person have are exactly what leaders need right now. So I challenged them. I was like, are you sure everybody's scared right now? And you could see them ding, 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 ding. And they were able to tap into their inner knowing and elevate their perspective and say, you know what? No. And already the whole plan was mapped out in their own mind. This is how I can do it. This is how I can start showing up. This is how I can shift my services. This is who I can help. This is how I can reach them. This is how I can really, really, really give back. And like I said, be of service, the higher level of service. And it was such a beautiful moment, because at the moment I did not have to say another word. It was literally holding space for that particular person. And that's another way of showing up, right? That I had to learn sometimes that I don't even need to say something. I don't even need to post anything. I don't even need to hop on a live stream just so that I can tick off the box and say, yay, I was on a live stream today. It's literally just setting an intention and holding space. That is perfectly enough. That in itself was a big leap for me, because coming from somebody who was really pragmatic, analytical, learned how to push through the pain, push through any obstacles to get the job done, just sitting back and dropping into the energy and holding space, that was on a completely other side of the spectrum. But again, once I started to embrace that part and that side of me, again, it allows me to be a really wholesome person, and it allowed me to serve my clients on a much more holistic level. So we can talk about strategies, we can talk about tactics, we can talk about details of a proposal, we can talk about details of technology, we can talk about any detail when it comes to management, marketing, putting the offers together, the pricing, business organization, business operations. And then we can talk about the big picture, the spirituality, the collective, the vibrational frequencies, the mindset, the evolution, the expansion, right? Seemingly on complete different sides of the spectrum. That said, for a long time, that fact was keeping me numbed and paralyzed also in marketing. Because what is the rule in marketing? Rule number one, be consistent in your branding, be consistent in how you're showing up, right? So I was like, how can I continuously show up in just one particular aspect? Trying to niche down to the point where it's just like a pin drop on, in the all the vastness of a canvas that is available. How can I communicate that to the client on the other side, potential client who needs to hear from me right now? And again, the less that I try to be strategic and, strategic about it, coming from intellectual space, super analytical, and trying to think what is it that I should be saying. And the more that I start to trust my inner guidance and tapping into the space of what do my clients need to hear right now? What do my people need to hear right now? What does my audience need right now? What are the questions? What are the challenges that are faced with their mind not even have the courage to ask? And tapping into that, innately I knew how to respond. And innately I knew whether or not I need to write something about it or I need to do a live stream. Do I need to reach out to somebody in person and say, hey, I just thought about you and this is coming up for me. How are you doing? Or any other combination, right? And it's amazing all the pressure that lifts when you allow yourself to do the same. When you stop following all the shoulds and all the coulds and all the needs to and must from everybody else. Like I said, I'm having a lot of conversation with clients, with my colleagues, with my business besties, with my mentors, with my friends. And, ultimately, I think we all just want to do our best, and we all are doing our best in the very moment. And a lot of us right now don't even want to buy into the collective pressure of fear and uncertainty, but we are consciously choosing to remain above all of that and be in the space of expansion, embracing all the change and embracing the rebirth that is happening right now, and also embracing the innovation that we get to play with, right? I mean, there is an opportunity in everything. In every situation, there's an opportunity when you choose to see it, when you choose to look for it. And I do truly believe that the less we doubt in ourselves and the more than we trust our inner guidance, not only will be able to serve in the more aligned way and the higher level, but that's gonna expedite the process in which we can get there. And process in itself, we're now going, for quite some time now, 24 minutes almost. And this conversation is taking on a whole different form. Like I said, I am not a person who stays with the scripts, but this is really coming through right now. Where were we? Oh yeah. Allowing yourself to innovate and allowing yourself to embrace this change and expediting the process, which means that we need to trust the process in the first place, right? And I just did a live stream in my own private community on the actual topic of trusting the process, which was a little bit different conversation that we're having right now. And I'm gonna just summarize it a little bit. But trusting the process in itself has to do with dropping into the inner guidance and being okay with the change, and being okay with not knowing exactly what tomorrow brings, and being okay with not trying to replicate the past, but being present in this particular moment. Because when we allow ourselves to be present in this particular moment, we can really show up exactly the way we are called to show up. And we can serve exactly the way our audience needs us, the highest common denominator. But when we try to force things, and when we try to really intellectualize our responses, and we try to replicate the past, what I have learned from my own experience, it doesn't work. And I'm going to give you a concrete example. So here it goes. Every single time I personally up level, there's this vacuum, so to speak, right? When my mind is like, okay, I know this new space is here. I know this new energy is here. I know these new opportunities are here. But I also know that there was this past and proven ways of doing things, and they worked, and they were awesome, and they created results. But in this space of reality catching up to where I am in the new, after every up level, I do find myself sometimes pulled back by the ego and the known, right? And it would happen, for example, in a very raw and real conversation here. Yes, it has happened before that out of fear I would try to offer something that used to work, but I was just so afraid of, oh my gosh, how much longer is this transition, this up-leveling gonna take, when I'm gonna be seeing results, so I have to have something in place. And I would tap into something and I would try to replicate something that worked in the past. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so awesome, and I'm gonna send it out, without realizing it was my ego. And you know what the results were? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Zero, silence, nothing. Absolutely crickets. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Thanks, universe, for the reminder. This is no longer my playing field. I am up here now, so why am I trying to replicate something that was working on that playing field? And it happens less and less and less, but it still does. Or it would still happen when, not just with the offers, but also in how I'm showing up for my kids, for example. Just the other day, I found myself having to bite my tongue because, yes, they are older now than they used to be, and they are more expressive, and explaining something in a simple way sometimes is just not enough. And I found myself how agitated I was because they were still asking for details about something. And I was like, I already explained it to you. Like, why are you asking this again? And then I reminded myself, you know what? Why am I reacting this way? Because obviously natural curiosity, they understand more complexities that they used to. This is a great opportunity for us to explore and to expand their own experiences and to expand their own understanding. And I was like, when I caught myself in that, I was like, oh yeah, that is exactly what I did in my business. I try to hold on to something from the past, and I try to make it work in the current reality when it has no place for it. It just doesn't fit. It's not enough anymore. And one of the biggest leaps that I made, and that really, really, really took a toll on me for some time, was leaping from virtual business management agency and consulting agency into coaching and consulting alone. And I would still every once in a while try to dip my toes into the old ways of doing, and I try to offer them for these services. And again, there were crickets because that was no longer in alignment with what I was meant to do. And I had to trust the process. Even when for months there would be no new clients coming in, I had to trust the process, that it's just, my reality was just recalibrating to the new level. And then another leap that I took, like I said, not that long ago, actually in September, October, of 2019, literally scrubbing everything clean, rebranding my business, recreating my offers, restructuring everything. Again, it didn't make any logical sense. I simply had to trust that it was what I was called to do, and it was the next level for me. And interestingly, looking back now, I was like, oh yeah, that was exactly perfect timing, because where I am right now, I don't have to scramble with pivoting and innovating, because I have set the stage so I can show up fully present in every single moment, tapping to exactly what my clients and audience needs, and deliver and be there to serve, because that foundation has already been set, because I dared to trust the process and I dared to make the leap, even when on a logical level it did not make any sense. You can ask my husband. When I mentioned him what I was doing, he's like, what? Why would you try to fix something that's not broken? Well, it was broken in many different ways, not externally, but internally. I knew it was time. So, like I said, this conversation is taking on a whole different form, because, as always, trusting the process, not staying to the script.
Call from Clarkstown, Petty.
I have to take this call, so if you have any questions, reach out. Thank you for being here. Much love.